Welcome everyone! I am so glad that you are all joining me for this special day. I'm so excited for today. It's been a ton of work and a long time coming, and I literally cannot wait to share with you what I have in store. Here is a little glimpse really quick so you can see what I'm talking about. But basically, if you sign up and purchase these today, you are in store for an entire year of exclusive painting supplies, including brushes, paints, paper, outlines, slow-paced step-by-step tutorials, the awesome boxes that they arrive in that are delivered straight to your door, plus a few extra fun little painting supplies and gifts. And on top of that, by the end, hopefully you will have not only developed some new skills, but you will also have 12 beautiful paintings that you created yourself and can show off to family and friends. If you are someone who has enjoyed my YouTube tutorials or even maybe purchased a set of my 5-piece Craftamo brushes a while back, if you enjoy and love using those things, I'm telling you right now, you are absolutely going to love these classes in a box. Now, I have my Craftamo product page link in the description of this video. These will be open and available for purchase in just about 10 to 15 minutes or 9 o'clock on the hour Mountain Daylight Time. And I'm also going to be showing and telling about the supplies that come with these classes in more detail in just a minute, as well as I'm going to unbox the first watercolor class so you can sort of see what is in store. That way you can make a good and informed decision on if this is something that you feel like you would enjoy and like to take part of. Now, before we get into that, I do need to say something. I've done my best to make these classes worth every single penny, but please only do this if it makes sense for you financially. You, of course, need to take care of you and your needs first. This should not be a burden in any way. This is something that I want to be fun and enjoyable and worth your time and money. And with that being said, I am going to be announcing some sales and discounts today that will hopefully reduce the costs a little bit. So make sure that you stick around so you can hear about that. And just one last thing, whether or not you are interested in these watercolor classes, I do have a beautiful painting tutorial planned out for today that I am so excited to share with you. Actually, I'm going to go pull that out really quickly just so you can see what I have in store. Now, this might look a little bit tricky right now, but don't write it off just yet. I'm going to be breaking this down in a nice and slow way, and I truly think you can do this. So give me a few minutes and we'll jump right into this painting. But first, let's go ahead and try unboxing one of these watercolor classes so you can get an idea of what's inside. There are 12 of these watercolor classes in a box, and you would receive one box a month for an entire year. This one actually is going to be the very first box that you would receive for the first month, and this first box is actually going to be slightly larger in size than the others because of one of the extra gifts that's included with the subscription. It's a little bit bigger and needed more room to fit in here. And actually the second box may be larger in size too, but I'm not 100% on that. I guess that is going to be a surprise. But here on the front of the box is the painting that you will have the supplies and the tutorial to learn how to paint yourself. I think Craftamo does a terrific job at putting all of these things together in such a beautiful and professional way. Now let's talk about some of the things that will be included with each watercolor class. First up, we have a lovely sample card of the painting that I hope will be a good reference for you to use as you start painting your own. On the back of these cards is some helpful information that I'm not going to read over right now. I'll let you do that. But the most important thing is actually what I'm covering up with my hand. Each of these cards has a special website link that you will use to find the exclusive tutorial that I've created to help walk you through step by step how to paint this picture. I've tried to keep these tutorials in a slow, real-time format so you can literally paint right along with me as we go. Then next up, there's going to be some transparent transfer paper that you can use to help get the outline image of the painting onto your watercolor paper. I haven't actually tried this out myself, so I'm not sure of the best way to make this work quite yet. In fact, usually with my tutorials, I tell you you can just trace your drawings using a light table or even just a well-lit window in your house. This outline is printed on a thicker, higher quality paper, so I wasn't sure if it would work as well. So I actually tested it out myself to see if it would work, and my light table was still able to show the outline through the thick paper as well as through the watercolor paper when it's laid on top of the outline. So there you go. Just for information's sake, you have some options on how you would like to get your outline drawing onto your watercolor paper. As a quick side note as well, to make these boxes a little bit easier to ship out, we have created everything in an A5 size format. The watercolor paper, the outline, the transfer paper, and the smaller size boxes, which I will be showing in just a minute, etc., is all in the A5 size. So just for reference in inches, this size is approximately 5.8 inches by 8.2 inches. And for this watercolor paper that is in the A5 size, this is 100% cotton paper, and you will get 4 sheets of it with each box. So by the end, you will have received 48 sheets of paper. That way you can use some for color swatches or brushstroke practice. You can paint more than one of the paintings, or you can use the extras for an entirely different project, just whatever you want to do. Okay, moving on. In each and every box, you will also receive 2 of my specially hand-picked shapes, types, and sizes of my Craftamo brushes that I designed myself. So by the end of the 12 months, this means you will have 24 brand new Liesl's Artistic Studio by Craftamo brushes, of which there are no duplicates. They are all different, and to be honest, when Craftamo brought this watercolor class in a box idea to me, as soon as I heard I could create 24 more brushes for the project, I was like, heck yeah, these are my absolute favorite brushes to paint with, and I couldn't have been more excited to have more of them in more shapes and more sizes. And I won't be going over every single brush today, but I am planning a tutorial to show off all of these in greater detail just next week, so make sure you tune in for that. All right, next up, with each box you will also receive 4 half-pan paint colors that you can use for the painting that you see on the cover. And isn't this little box, they come in so cute. I tell you, Craftamo does a great job at helping me put all this together. This is actually one of my paintings on the box too, just FYI. And something that I think that is super fun about these paints is that because I am only giving you 4 colors with each painting, we really get to play around a lot with color mixing throughout this series. I really think you're going to learn a lot about color mixing, some of which may actually surprise you. So to me, this is not only a fun challenge to push your painting skills with a little bit, but you are going to learn a lot from it. Okay, last but not least, as I said, this box needed to be slightly larger in size because of the extra added gift that comes with it. This is a one-time thing that will hopefully be useful and helpful to you throughout the entire 12-month course, but included with these classes, you are going to get this awesome metal paint tin that you will be able to collect and store your half-pan paints in that you get each month, as well as be able to paint right from it with each painting. There are a ton of little paint wells in this tray. I'm so excited for this to be one of the extra gifts. I've already used mine a ton and I absolutely just love it. To help hold the half pans a little bit tighter in here, you can just slightly bend these metal pieces inward, and that seems to work pretty good. I recommend bending them slightly before you try putting the half pans in though. I get a tighter fit that way. Something else I'll mention really quickly while we are on the subject, sometimes when you get brand new metal painting palettes or tins, they can cause your paint to sort of bead up on the tray, which can be a little bit frustrating. I was actually hoping to demonstrate that, but they did not bead up like I thought they would right now, but actually it does later when I get more into the actual painting, so you'll see it better then. But basically, they just have a shiny coating on here that makes that paint and water bead up when they're brand new. It wears down after a few uses and a little bit over time, but something you can sort of do to break that paint tin in a little bit quicker is just take a touch of toothpaste and rub a little bit of that on the well and then wipe it off, and it really does solve the problem right away. I think there are other methods that break this in as well, but this has always worked for me. Anyway, these are all of the amazing items that are just in the first box. Most of these are going to be pretty standard with each monthly box, but like I say, there will be a few more extra gifts that I've selected here and there as well, which I won't totally give away yet. I kind of want to have a few surprises for you ahead, but I really think you're going to love what's coming. And just so you know, I have personally selected everything that comes in these kits and designed the painting, the outline, and the brushes myself. So this really has been a labor of love that I truly hope you're going to enjoy. Now, let's talk about prices for these. And while I talk, I may pull out a few of the other boxes that will be coming with these classes just so you can see and get a general idea of the paintings that I'll be teaching throughout the course. So normally these sell for $55 US a month, but we do have some discounts as well as different payment plans going on that I think will really help. And then you can choose a plan that fits the best within your budget. First off, if you choose to pay by the month as you go, right now, instead of the $55, it will only be $50 a month instead. Hopefully, I'm going to be announcing all of these correctly. A Craftamo representative is on here with us today, so they can correct me if I get anything wrong. But then we also have a 6-month plan, which means you can pay for 6 months at a time. Basically, you would pay this with 2 installments, the first 6 months up front, and then pay the next 6 months after the first 6 are up. And with this, you'll get an even greater discount savings of 15%. So if my calculations are correct, the total cost would be $510, and then if you split this into the 2 6-month periods, it would be $255 each 6 months. And this would result in a savings of $90 US compared to paying the $50 by the month. And then lastly, you can choose to pay the full amount up front for the entire year's worth of classes and supplies, resulting in a 25% savings, which for the full 12 months would be a cost of $450 US. And if my calculations are correct, this would be a total savings of $150 compared to that $50 month plan. Now, while I'm showing this box off just a little bit, the box cover only has half of the actual painting on it. Here off to the side is the full piece for this. With these classes, I've tried to have a good variety of things to paint, like flowers, of course. If you've watched much of my stuff, you know that's what I love to paint. And then I have a couple of landscapes, some butterflies, and birds. And I feel like it's a pretty good assortment of things. And although I'm only showing these first 4 boxes today, here is just a quick glimpse at the few other paintings that I have in store for these classes. Of course, these are not all 12 featured here. I do want to have some of them be a complete surprise. Today, I'm just trying to give you a good feel of what's to come so you can choose to do this, but at the same time, I love surprises and I thought it would be fun to keep some of these a little bit more mysterious. Okay, I have definitely talked way too much today, so I apologize for that, but hopefully this has all been good information for you too. And don't worry, as we get into the painting demonstration using some of these supplies, then I will stop talking quite so much so that you can just relax and paint. And I would love for you to join me on this, so go pull out your painting stuff and let's get started. Now, here on my watercolor paper, I have a lightly penciled outline sketch on here to help us get started. This paper is not from the boxes because I did want to paint this on a larger scale, and because this is drawn so lightly and it's a little bit hard to see, let me pull out a darker version to show you so you can kind of get an idea of what we've got going on a little bit better. And just as a side note, I will have this outline available in my Etsy shop for purchase to help you out today. And in honor of my watercolor classes in a box launch, I will be putting this outline on sale at a 40% discounted price for just 1 week. I would really love for you to give this a try. And actually, on top of this, I may put a few other outlines in my shop on sale as well. So make sure you go over and check it out. I'll leave a link to my Etsy shop in the description of this video. But after you get this outline printed out, all you have to do is trace it onto your watercolor paper using a light table or even just a well-lit window in your house, and you are ready to go. Now, actually, I am going to put a quick hold on things because if I've been watching the clock correctly, it's been about 15 minutes since this video has started and the clock is on the hour. So guess what that means? Yes, my Craftamo subscription watercolor classes in a box are now officially open and available for purchase. So head on over to the Craftamo website at www.craftamo.com or click the link in the description of this video and sign up for your year's worth of watercolor classes. Yay! I am so excited. But while you take some time to check that out, I am just going to continue on getting my supplies out and ready for this painting. Now, you can pull out whatever paints you have on hand to create this, and in fact, you don't even have to paint this with the same color scheme that I'm going to be using. You can literally do whatever you want. Today, I will be using these Craftamo paints, so you can kind of see them at work, and I will also be using my fun paint tin to mix my colors on today. Isn't this little paint palette so much fun though? These are going to be all of the paint colors that you will accumulate and collect through my watercolor classes. There's a really good assortment and variety in here. And then off to the side, I also have some clean water and a paper towel. And I am going to tape my paper down today with some artist tape just to help reduce some of the warping. Then also off to the side here, I have my 24 sizes of Craftamo brushes. I'm actually not sure which ones I'm going to be using just yet, but I've got them ready just in case. And like I mentioned earlier, I will be putting out a more in-depth tutorial on all of the specific brushes very soon, as well as a tutorial where I swatch all of the paint colors so that you can see them a little bit better. So keep an eye out for both of those within the next couple of weeks. Now, before we throw some colors on here, I do have an optional step that you can try out if you want. Sometimes when I paint with really light colors, I like to also lighten up my pencil lines a little bit so that they're not quite so visible when everything is said and done. So if you just take a kneaded eraser and roll it up sort of like a hot dog shape, then you can roll that eraser around on your paper, or you can even just dab at it a little bit. And this is going to take off any of that loose graphite on the page, which will just lighten up those lines a little bit. All right, we are going to work on this painting from the back to the front, so I think I'll start with the window area first. Let's paint in some trees and greenery showing through the window. Using maybe a number 6 round brush, I'll just pull out an assortment of green colors for this. You, of course, can use whatever you have on hand, but maybe I'll start with a little bit of sap green and then some hooker's green dark. And okay, now you see, I don't know why it didn't do this before. I had actually saved one of these wells to demonstrate how the paint can bead up on a new tin. But as you saw, it didn't work earlier. It is now though, so you can see here how the paint can kind of bead up on a new tin, but that toothpaste really does do the job. For my other green color here, I will also have some hooker's green light mixed with some cobalt blue for a nice dark blue-green color. And you know what, while I'm at it, maybe I'll pull out a couple of blue colors as well that we might be able to use in the sky. Now, here I have some pure cobalt blue as well as some powder blue, and this is a really nice, light, creamy blue color. Okay, I think we can get started with those. I will first just wet down one of the window areas with water first. I want these little trees and bushes in the background to be more soft and loose looking, like they're farther away in the painting. Then after I have the area covered with water, I'll start painting in some of the greens, starting with the lightest green first, and then adding in a touch of the darker green as a little bit of shadow accent. I'm going to keep the upper areas of the window a little bit lighter in value though, and then as I get to the bottom part of the pane, I'm going to paint them in darker. Also, as another side note, if it's helpful to you for this part, you can use some masking fluid and mask off the window pane so that this is a little bit easier to paint. I'm just going to be a little bit more careful around the edges today, but you can do whatever you prefer. I think it might be nice to add in just a touch of blue color in here as well to represent a little bit of the sky. But you know what? I think I'll use the lighter blue color for this just so there's a hint of it. In the window pane off to the right side of this, I'll probably just paint in that blue color over the entire area since the bushes don't come out quite this far. All right, I'm just going to continue on painting these bushes in down the window sections in the exact same way, so go ahead and just follow along. While we work on this though, since this is a premiere video, I should have said this before, so in case you're not aware, I am here in the live chat today and I would love to hear from you. Let me know who I've got here with me, maybe where you're from if you'd like to share that, and also if you decide to purchase my watercolor classes in a box, I'd love for you to share that with me as well. These classes are only going to be available for a limited time, so please let me know so I can personally thank you for your support.
And as another side note, if you're new to my channel and you're enjoying my painting and teaching style, I hope you'll subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss out on any of my new and upcoming weekly tutorials. Now, when I get down to this bottom area, I am going to put a little bit of color in and around the flower bouquet, going around the flowers and just filling in some of the empty space. We can go ahead and cover up the areas that are going to have leaves because we can just paint those in a darker green color later. All right, great job with that. This is a really good start to this piece. I think I'll just pull out my hairdryer to speed up the drying process just a little bit. I want to paint the window frames next, but I do want this to be dry before we do that. Okay, let's switch over to a smaller size brush now that can get into some of the smaller spaces a little bit better. How about maybe a number 2 round? I kind of want a brownish gray color for some of the shadow areas around the window frame. So maybe I'll try mixing together a little bit of sepia with some indigo. I love this for a shadow color. It's kind of a brownish gray with just a hint of blue in there. This color is fairly light in value. I don't need it to be very dark yet, so add some extra water in here to keep it nice and light. And then let's try painting half of this center line in the window first. Now, we could probably just paint this color straight on here right now, but I actually may try adding a little bit of water to the area first, just so that it spreads a little bit better. Now that the water's on there, we can go ahead and add the paint into the space. And I will point out the window isn't too hard as far as difficulty goes, but these are some pretty small spaces, so it can be a little bit tedious. You definitely want to go slow and be careful to stay within some of the lines. I think I'll take a touch of this color and paint it on the tops of these window areas as well. These spaces are small enough, I think we can just get the color on here to spread without any water first this time. Okay, very good. Now let's paint this line that goes down around the outside of the window next. This is just one space away from the greenery in the window, and I think I'll put a little bit of water down first on this one. And this area actually goes not only along the side of the window, but also along the bottom as well. So fill in that whole area with this color. You know, I hope you're taking on the challenge of this painting. This might be a little bit tricky and might push your skills a little bit, but I definitely think it looks harder than it is, especially if you can break it down piece by piece. Probably the most difficult part will be the vase and the curtains. And to be honest with you, this painting will take some time to do. This isn't one that you're just going to whip out in half an hour. It might take some time, so feel free to set it aside at a good stopping point. Take a break from it for a little bit so that you can come back to it again, refreshed and ready to begin again. This spot looks just a little bit flat, and I don't know if I put this in the drawing, but I am just going to add a little angled line in the corner of this to make it look a little bit more dimensional. Okay, I kind of am just going to be repeating a lot of this same process until the window area looks good. So maybe I'll skip another white line down here and paint in this larger frame using those same colors and the wet on wet technique. If you happen to just be tuning into the video today, welcome. I'm so glad to have you. And just to fill you in if you missed the beginning, besides this awesome painting that we're working on today, today is my Craftamo watercolor classes in a box launch day. I went over a lot of details in the beginning of the video if you'd like to go back and watch through that for more info, but I also have listed some details and information along with my product page link in the description of this video if you'd like to check that out a little bit. And just a reminder, these are set at a discounted price right now and will only be for sale for a limited time. So make sure you take advantage of this while the offer lasts. Okay, I might try something that may or may not work here. I'm going to see what happens if I paint this next line in with more of a gradient of color. I'll go ahead and wet the area down first, and then instead of just painting the solid color along the whole thing, I'm going to try putting the color in just on the left side of it and then let it sort of bleed or blend into the right side. And you can try this if you want, but if you're worried about getting it to work, you of course can paint it in one solid color instead. If you do paint it in a solid color, I might recommend changing the color up just a little bit though, so that it doesn't look exactly the same as the line of color right next to it. All right, I think I'll change things up just a little bit now and add some darker color into the painting by just mixing up a more concentrated, darker version of the sepia and the indigo colors. In fact, before I really paint with this color in this space, I might try something else a little bit crazy. I haven't ever done this before, so honestly, I might be making a huge mistake right now. You'll have to let me know if you've ever tried this before and if it worked for you. But some of these thin spaces and lines can be really hard to paint nice and straight. In fact, I've had lots of people tell me that it's hard just because they don't have a super steady hand. So I thought I'd see what would happen if I just use a ruler to help paint in some small, thin shadow lines. You still need to be careful, but it actually is working better than I expected. And not only did it create a nice thin, straight shadow line, it also sort of cleaned up my edges a little bit too and made them look nicer. That was kind of a risk, but I think it was worth it, and I might actually use this trick again in just a little bit. For now though, let's just go ahead and paint in another area this sort of dark gray color. I'll start by painting the space that butts up right against the curtain on the left side, and then I'll paint in another space down below as well. Just follow along. And as we work on this, I'd love to hear from you all if watercolors is the only painting medium that you work with, or if there's others that you enjoy as well. I also paint with acrylic and oil. I used to paint with both of these way more than I ever did with watercolors, surprisingly, because I actually wasn't any good at watercolors when I first started. But my love of them has grown and grown the more I use them, and now they are my absolute favorite thing to paint with. But I'd love to hear what other mediums you enjoy using, or if watercolors is it for you. For this next little section, I think I'll add in just a touch more brown to the color so that it will look slightly different. But then on the section down below, then I'll try that gradient of color again using a nice dark gray at the top and then blending it in lighter down below. I'm not sure that I like how that turned out, but you know what? It is what it is. I probably should have waited to paint that darker color in until that other section was dry. I got impatient and went ahead, and now my colors are bleeding a little bit. I think it'll be okay though. I'll just add a ruler line in there and help separate that and make it look a little bit cleaner in a little bit. I think I'm ready to change up the colors just slightly again for the next section on the window. Maybe this time I'll try a touch of red or pink to it. I think maybe I'll try a little bit of this rose madder hue, and I might even switch over to a slightly larger brush for this section just to paint it in a little bit quicker. Maybe I'll try a number 4 round. Okay, well done. Now that was a lot of work, but it turned out pretty good in the end. The good news is that this is just the background area of the picture. The focal point is more around the vase of the flower, so if there are any little mistakes in there that you don't like, they are not going to be super noticeable in the end. I'm going to pull out my hair dryer and dry this off again really well so that I can come back in and add maybe a few more of those ruler lines in here and there with the dark gray color. If yours looks good without it though, then you're welcome to skip this step. All right, well done. Let's continue on by painting in the ground or that little table area next, whatever you want to call it. I'll just take a little bit of burnt umber and mix it with a touch of sepia for a nice brown color. And then I'll grab a touch of indigo to use as a shadow color also. I'll go ahead and paint in the area with water first using a number 8 round brush. Now I'll use a little bit of extra water and grab a bit of the brown color and start applying that as a base layer of color for the ground area. While this is still wet, I think I'll take a touch of the gray color on my tray, or you could use some of the dark brown, whichever you prefer, and just add a touch of that right at the base of the windowsill for a bit of shadow. I'll also take a touch of the brown and add that under the curtain off to the right side as well as underneath the vase. Then off to the left side, I have a small area marked for a shadow where maybe I'll try out some of that indigo color. Now to really help emphasize these shadows, I'll pull out a smaller round brush, maybe that number 2 again, take a touch of one of the shadow colors and just add a darker line right up against the curtains and the vase. If you happen to just be tuning into the video today, just letting you know that today we are celebrating the opening pre-sales for my Craftamo watercolor classes in a box. These are only going to be available for a limited time, and we do have them on a discounted price right now, so make sure you pop over to my Craftamo product page really quickly using the link I have listed in the description of this video, or you can go to www.craftamo.com and take a peek at what we have in store. Okay, great job. Now, believe it or not, this is a huge portion of this painting done. I feel like that was actually probably the most boring part too. So now that that is out of the way, we can get to more of the fun stuff. Let's move on to the curtains. This is a big part of the painting that really frames in the vase, which serves as the focal point of the piece. And I think it would be really fun to paint these in sort of a peach colored tone. Of course, you can choose whatever color you'd like. I think I'll try mixing up a color here, maybe using a color called Scarlet Lake, and then maybe add some Alizarin crimson in here too to tone that red color down just a tad. This is a good start, but I do want it to be a little bit more peach in color, so I think I'll try adding in a touch of cadmium orange to the mix. And I might just want to have some pure cadmium orange on my tray as well for a bit of change in color on the curtains too. And these colors can be fairly watered down. I want the curtains to look light and airy, so I'm keeping the colors light in value to help with that effect. And as a side note, whenever mixing colors, it's always a good idea to test your colors out on a scrap piece of paper to make sure that it's how you like before you put it on the actual painting. And as with a good majority of this piece, I am going to paint these in using the wet on wet technique to help those colors blend and spread in a nice and soft flowy way. So I'll go ahead and add some water on this left curtain using a fairly large brush. I think this is a size 11 round. This holds a lot of water and really helps lay this down pretty quick. All right, now when I'm ready, I'll switch over to a smaller brush, maybe a number 8 round, and start adding some color in here. The main color for this is going to be the more reddish peachy color, but I will be adding in a hint of the cadmium orange as well here and there just to change things up a bit. I'll just paint these colors in using some nice long strokes of the brush, and it is a good idea to try to have some lighter or less painted areas as well as some darker colors so that it gives off the look of ripples or folds in the fabric. At this point, I'll just kind of play around with it a little bit, add more color where I feel like it needs it. But as a side note, if you ever feel like you put down too much color or you don't have some of the lighter strips of value in here, you can either use your paper towel and dab off some of the color, or you can rinse and dry your brush off and use the damp brush to swipe some of the color off. One of the major keys to making these curtains work is to have the colors gently blending and bleeding into each other to keep it looking soft and flowy. Okay, not too bad. Let's go ahead and move over to the curtain on the right and paint that in the same way that we just did. With this one though, I do have a little tie around the middle of the curtain that I'm actually going to just leave white and paint around for now. We'll come back to that in a little bit. So when I do these premiere videos where I can live chat with you, I really enjoy using this time to get to know you a little bit better. So I have a couple of questions for you that I'd love for you to respond to if you're up for it. First off, how long have you been watercolor painting? When did you first start watercolors? And second, what are some of your favorite go-to water palette colors? You hear my favorite colors often because I tend to use the same ones pretty frequently in my tutorials, but I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey and the colors you like to use. right, well done. These aren't too hard to do if you can keep yourself from overworking the space. It can be hard to know when to call it good enough, but I think at this point I will leave it be and pull out my hairdryer to dry it off so I can finish painting the little center tie between these two halves. Now with the center tie, there really isn't anything too tricky or complicated that I'm going to do with this. I'll paint a little bit of water on here and then just add a very slight amount of color, more in the center part of the tie, and leave some of the top and bottom areas more white so that it will stand out from the rest of the curtain. Okay, well done, my friends. We are actually just about done with this piece. We only have the focal point left, which is the vase of flowers. So let's start by painting in the vase for the flowers first. And again, you can choose whatever colors you'd like for this. I'm going to be using a pretty blue for today to complement the orangey peach colored curtains. I think I'll use two different blue colors for this. Maybe I'll try some of this turquoise blue for a lighter, brighter, more vibrant blue. And then I'll just freshen up this cobalt blue for a darker shadow color. Because this is a slightly smaller area, I will be painting this with a slightly smaller brush as well, maybe the number 4 round. I'll be painting this once again with the water first and then the color, and I'm going to paint around the few highlight areas that we have penciled in here as well. We'll just be leaving those white. When I'm ready to start adding in the color, I'll start with the turquoise color first and just go ahead and paint pretty much the entire area of the vase with this as a light blue base color. Then while that base turquoise color is still a little bit wet, I'll take some of the darker cobalt blue and blend that into a few areas to create a bit of shadowed look. I'm just kind of playing this by ear, but I am going to want some along the bottom of the vase as well as the sides. And then to finish it off, I'll add some to the center of the vase just a little bit, but not so that it totally takes over that turquoise color. I'll start this darker color out a little bit more cautiously and then continually add a little bit more as I go, as I see fit. All right, the top part of the vase looks pretty good. I think I will just leave it at that. But now we need to finish off the very bottom rim of the vase as well. Because this is such a small space, I am going to switch over to the smaller brush for this, maybe even the number 1 round. But then I'll sort of paint it in the same way with a base layer of the light turquoise blue and then add in the darker cobalt blue as a shadow color that can be used to paint in some thin lines and separate the sections. I kind of lost my highlight spot down here and I really think it needs one. So I'm going to take just a touch of water on the tip of my brush and paint that in the area that I want my highlight to be. And then I'll just use my paper towel to dab off the extra water and color. I may just dry this off really quick and just darken up and crisp up some of these lines down along this base area. Maybe I'll add a little bit of indigo to the cobalt blue to use for this. Perfect. I think that turned out pretty good. Let's go ahead and move on to the flowers in the vase next. Now I plan to use the same color mixture that we used on the curtains, but I used most of that up, so I'm going to freshen those colors up just a little bit really quickly. I will use the number 4 round brush to paint in a base layer of this lighter cadmium orange. And actually, I think there's a touch of red mixed into this by now, but you know what? It's going to work okay just like that. Then after that base light peach color is down, I'll take the number 1 round brush and add in a touch of darker red orange peach color and blend a little bit of this into the flower while that initial paint is still a little bit wet, so they sort of blend and bleed together a little bit. And you can make these flowers into whatever type you want. I'm sort of planning to have mine be more rose looking. I'll go ahead and paint in all of the rose or flower heads in this same way, and I will just point out these colors are going to be blending in together nice and soft, but that's okay. We're going to come back in here later after it's dry and add in a little bit more detail. In the meantime though, if you want to, you can try leaving a few small white areas on the roses for now, and that's kind of a fun little touch. Okay, while we work on this, I have another fun question for you. Do you prefer and like using the wet on wet technique, or do you like the wet on dry technique more with watercolors, and why? Again, this is a pretty obvious answer for me. If you watch many of my tutorials, I really enjoy the wet on wet technique. For me, this is something that makes watercolors unique compared to other mediums. This is something special that not a lot of other paint types can do, if any, really. I also just love that subtle bleeding effect and watching the paint blend and spread out. It can kind of be a surprise sometimes because you really don't know what you're going to get with it. And sometimes it forces you to kind of just work with what the paint wants to do. I really love the wet on wet technique. All right, now these flowers actually look pretty good just as they are, but if you'd like to take this a step further, you can take some of that dark peachy red color and a small number 1 round and come back in here and just paint in some darker, more detailed lines. This just kind of crisps up and emphasizes the look, but the choice is up to you. Now we only have one thing left to paint in, and that is some of the greenery surrounding the flowers. Just like when we painted the bushes in the window, I want to have a variety of green colors that I can choose from. Maybe I will freshen up the sap green color. Then I'll take some olive green just to change things up a little bit for the second color here. And lastly, how about some hooker's green mixed with a touch of indigo to make a nice dark sort of bluish green color. Now using a small number 2 round brush, I'll just go ahead and paint these leaves in and maybe a few stems as well. You really can use any combination of colors that you want here. Just use your artistic eye and see what might look good and try out whatever you want. It doesn't have to look exactly like mine either. You also have a choice if you want to have some solid colors or if you would like to have some of your leaves be more of a gradient of color. That way you can use a lighter base wash with a touch of darker color that blends into it. I will probably be doing a little bit of both. The other thing I'll point out or mention is that even though I have some of these stems and leaves sketched in here, you do not have to follow these exactly. Go ahead and add more leaves and more stems here and there if you feel like it needs it. I'm just the guide, but you are welcome to change things up however you want to make it look good in your eyes. And one last thing, you'll probably notice me jumping around a little bit here and there just to allow for some drying time before I paint right next to some of these leaves. That way they won't bleed together into one big leaf blob. This part might take just a little bit of time to complete, but while we work on this, I just want to remind you one last time really quickly to make sure to check out my Craftamo product page link in the description of this video to learn more about my monthly watercolor classes in a box. I'm super excited to share these with you. It's truly been a labor of love, and I hope that it will be fun and beneficial to you if you can and choose to participate. And just a quick reminder, this is a limited time project, and it is also set at a special discount for just a little while, so if you're interested in giving this a try, now is definitely the time. I'm just about done with these leaves, but I do think I need to add a few darker ones in the mix just to change things up a little bit. And if you'd like to, just for one final finishing touch, go ahead and add some little center vein lines to some of the larger leaves. Well, my friends, I think we can call this pretty little painting done. I am so proud of you for giving this a try. This is not a simple painting, and it definitely takes some time to complete, but hopefully you're pleased with the results and how your painting turned out.
Thank you so much for joining me on this special day. I truly hope you enjoyed painting this lovely piece. And I hope that if you choose to participate in these year-long watercolor classes in a box, that you love those too. Don't forget to go check out my Craftamo product page link for these boxes. These are only going to be able to be purchased for about 1 month, including that discount. So make sure you take advantage of this opportunity while it lasts. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Take care and happy painting.